Good morning, Manuel Glenn.
Good morning, Dean Weitzman.
Mr. Eric Tactics Jackson at the keys. Good morning. You need to share the old microphono.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't do that.
He shared.
No, charge it to my head, not to my heart. My bad. I'm sorry.
We have a special guest today.
Who, pray tell, Dean?
She's so far away from me. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Sherrell Dandy. I'm an attorney at Kline Specter law firm.
Sherrell began her career at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. A Philadelphia native. Where'd you grow up, Sherrell?
West Philly.
There you go.
Right near 61st and Market.
And she has been a state and federal prosecutor and has come over to the civil side. How long have you been at Kline Specter now, Sherrell?
About a year.
I was introduced to Sherrell by my friend Sherrell Specter because, as most people know, Kline Specter and my law firm, my Philly lawyer, often partner on larger cases, and especially in the mass tort world. And we decided at my Philly lawyer that we were going to be involved in the hair relaxer litigation. We talked about it a couple weeks ago briefly. And in that litigation, we're bringing claims against the manufacturers, perhaps the distributors and sellers as well, of hair relaxer products, because it has been determined through scientific studies that the chemicals in hair relaxer can cause uterine cancer and endometrial cancer. Sherrell, when did you first become involved and learn about this litigation?
In early November, shortly after the study had come out regarding the causation link between the hair relaxer use and the endometrial cancer and uterine cancers. So once I became aware of it, of course, it was very troubling for me, not just professionally, but also personally, given the fact that I also used hair relaxers for a very long period of time. And I know so many other women who've used hair relaxing products and who have developed these sort of cancers or other type of reproductive issues. So it was very troubling to me when I learned of it. And myself and Shannon at Kline Specter, Sherrell Specter, as well as some of the other attorneys at the firm, just became very troubled by it and wanted to get involved with helping women who've had these issues.
How did you feel as a woman who, when did you start using hair relaxers? How did that come to be?
I believe I was about 6 years old.
Wow.
When I first had a hair relaxer. They were just something that culturally black girls would get at a young age. Black women started getting them and once they started selling the hair relaxer box kits, you could just purchase them at the store, and you could either go to a hair salon or you can do them at home. And then in the early 90s, they started the first hair relaxer for little girls, which was the Just For Me hair relaxer that so many of us are familiar with, because some of us can still sing the song today, if you hear the song.
By the way, do you have children?
I don't, no.
Yeah, I have a 9-year-old, and she's forever. I mean, my wife, God bless her, can spend hours in the morning before school getting her hair in some hairdo that she wanted that day, And YouTube, they're always, looking on YouTube for the newest thing, and I have a niece who's half African American, half white, and her hair is poofy. I mean, it's wild. It's gorgeous hair, but just to comb through that hair can take forever. And I have seen her get her hair straightened, and it's completely different. I mean, it's a totally different look. And of course, when you're a kid, you want to be able to change your look up, and I think that the companies played on those desires by the young girls.
Absolutely. And the Just For Me marketing strategy for that particular brand is a perfect example of that. The box had little girls with, long, straight hair. And those little girls would be on the commercial singing that Just For Me song that, of course, they made it a very catchy song. So most little girls wanted to sing along. The little girls would look at the box and they want it to look like the girls that were depicted on the hair relaxer box in the hair relaxer commercials. So even if a mother may have been reluctant to put the chemical in a little girl's hair, oftentimes the girls wanted to look like the person on the box. So they would convince their moms to allow them to get a hair relaxer. And a lot of times that started at a very young age, particularly for my generation, because we were the generation of young girls who were bombarded with these images from Just For Me and PCJ and some of the other products.
Dark and Lovely.
Yes, Dark and Lovely. And especially when they started directing their marketing for little girls.
Johnson & Johnson.
Is that Dark and Lovely?
No, but there were so many. Because I remember this like it was yesterday. These commercials, these little girls, my little cousins, the hair relaxer, whole thing. And the fake out is it says no lie relaxers, because when you get the kit, it doesn't become the lie until you yourself mix it. They had plastic gloves in the kit, neutralizing shampoo, everything we saw in the hair salon.
I grew up in a hair salon. My parents were both beauticians.
Right.
Okay, and I can still, to this day, smell those chemicals.
There you go.
They were nasty.
Harsh, right?
Yes.
And you're breathing it for hours.
Oh, I tell you, my father would come home with his hands cracked and bleeding from interacting with the chemicals. So those either microabrasions on your scalp that you're not even aware of, or burns from the chemical, expose your skin and your blood system to the chemicals. What happens? What is it about the chemicals? I mean, because people ask me all the time, they say, Dean, how can a chemical you put on your head affect you in body parts that aren't connected to your head?
Yeah, well, the scalp is a place, it's a part of the body that can absorb chemicals more than other parts of the skin. So that's the first thing. And then the hair relaxers contain what's called endocrine disrupting chemicals, which they disrupt the endocrine system, which then affects hormonal balance. So they then cause estrogen dominance, which then affects these or causes these hormonally driven cancers. So because the relaxers contain these endocrine disrupting chemicals, that's one of the larger components of what causes them to be harmful and to affect the reproductive organs and particularly cause these cancers.
What obligation does a company have when they're marketing a product to determine the safety and efficacy of a product?
It's absolutely the company's obligation to test products, to know what chemicals are contained within their products. And what's troubling is that some of these chemicals aren't listed on the hair relaxer box ingredients because they're hidden as fragrances and don't necessarily have to be identified. But the manufacturers, of course, know. The hair relaxer companies know what these chemicals are, and they should be studying them. They should be testing them and making sure that they're safe for women to use.
What study came out in November? Who did the study, and how important is that study to connect causally the hair relaxer chemicals to the diseases we're seeing that are occurring because of them?
So as a doctor by the name of Dr. Chang and various other doctors that basically conducted this epidemiological study where they used information from what's called the sister study, which is where there was a lot of women who were sisters of a woman who had breast cancer, who they were able to conduct and gather a lot of information from these women and pretty much follow them over a significant course of time. And were able to, establish, particularly for women who were diagnosed with these uterine cancers, including endometrial cancer, which is a type of uterine cancer, and determined that a lot of these women had used hair relaxers. And there were a couple of different categories. There were people who used them before, of course, people who never used the hair relaxers before, and then there were people who frequently use the hair relaxers. And as women who use hair relaxers know, it's one of those things that you're committed to. You use it the first time and you put it from your root to your end, and that's the first time that you would chemically straighten virgin hair. And then after you have your hair grow, you continue to place it on a new growth. So there's a lot of women who frequently use these hair products, these hair relaxers, and the study incorporated that and looked at those women who frequently use the hair relaxers as well. And in doing so, there was it was a significant increase in risk for women who used the hair relaxers, but even more so for women who frequently used the hair relaxers, where they were 4 times as likely to potentially increase the risk of developing uterine and or endometrial cancer. So the study is, of course, very important. And just to give some context as to one of the reasons historically why the study is important is because there's been a lot of questions about why there's such an increase of Black women who have these sorts of cancers and other reproductive issues. And Black women tend to have these issues at a rate much, much higher than white women or other women. So it's always been sort of a question as to why Black women have these issues. And now this study begins to shed some light on that, particularly because we know that about 90% of Black women have used hair relaxers. There was a study that shows that about 90% of them women have used hair relaxers at some point. So it's one of those things that within the community, that is a commonality where there are so many Black women who've used them, whether starting as a child, use them as teenagers, or use them as adults. And depending on the hairstyle, would use them particularly frequently.
Let's define, pardon me, let's define frequency. How many times a year would an average Black woman or child use a hair relaxer product in order to get the look they were looking for on a consistent basis?
Typically, every 4 to 6 weeks, a woman or a young girl would get what we would refer to culturally as a touch-up, and that's where you would place the relaxer on the new growth portion of the hair. So typically every 4 to 6 weeks. However, depending on the hairstyle that a woman wears or prefers, depending on their hair texture, they may do it more frequently. So you'd find that some women who may have had a shorter hairstyle, and particularly in the warmer months, or women who may work out frequently and they sweat a lot more, may get a touch-up more frequently than average. And some women would do them every other week, I've heard. Of women who would do them that frequently. And
the more you used it, the greater the chance that you will develop uterine cancer or endometrial cancer as a result.
Absolutely.
What is the latency period? In other words, how long do you need to use it before your risk begins to increase?
So that's a question that's still being researched, and the research is still developing on this issue. So that is a question that researchers are still sort of grappling with. I will say that one of the things that endocrine disrupting chemicals have been proven to do and to cause, which has kind of been a known fact prior to the study, is cause early menstruation. So one of the other things that you would find is that women who have developed these conditions oftentimes started menstruating at an early age. So particularly for young girls who started using these products at a young age, the symptoms and the results are something that kind of bear out where you see these cancers and other types of reproductive issues because their hormonal imbalance started at such a young age.
I've seen and heard of girls as young as 8 and 9 having a menstruation I didn't know that it was as a result of using hair relaxer products, but that's an age that I've seen moms talking about their daughters beginning to menstruate.
Yes.
That's crazy.
As young as 8, 9, 10. That has become somewhat normal, even though it's so abnormal. But you hear so many of young girls who are starting their menstrual cycle at very young ages, and now we have some idea of why.
We are looking at cases, folks, and if you or you know one of your loved ones, we are looking at cases and investigating them for free. I mean, there's no obligation whatsoever to become a member of this group of people. It may turn out that we're able to support your claim. It may turn out we're not able to support your claim. But there's absolutely no reason not to investigate it. First and foremost, anyone who has or has had endometrial cancer or uterine cancer, these are the cancers that are most closely linked to the use of this product. And if you've used the product for, let's say, more than 5 years and more than 4 or 5 times a year, then your risk is substantially higher than those who have never used the product. So I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the people who have used a hair relaxer for 4 or 5 years or more and who have used it for 4 or more times per year.
I just have to say that what doesn't come out, and this is bringing back such memories. I mean, I was at Gordon Phillips School of Cosmetology. I've done hair. The psychological ramifications of this, as being a child and growing into a teenager and an adult, feeling like you have to assimilate, you have to appropriate this look in order to be a part of corporate America. And in spite of the pain, the risk, the suffering, you do this, and you've been doing this most of your life. I don't even know if that can be a part of a lawsuit, but that is part of it. We've had on Black Talk Radio years ago, we've had numerous conversations about trying to look white, so to speak, and straightening your hair, and the hair with the sebum oil, and then your hair is made of keratin and protein. That went on for the longest time. I just think this is a subject matter that is long overdue, and I'm glad you're taking it on.
I'm going to ask you a question, Sherrell, that I never ask a woman, but what is your age?
37. I just turned 37 in December.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Birthday. When in December?
The day after Christmas, December 26th.
So we're both Capricorns.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm January 8th. But, okay.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. What did you, what did you think or feel when you heard that there was this connection and that this may be in your future? I mean, there has to be a level of anxiety and fear that wasn't there before.
Absolutely. There's fear. There's anger and frustration. As which was just alluded to, as a Black woman, there are so many things that I grapple with in terms of my appearance. And my hair is certainly one of those things. I started using hair relaxers, as I mentioned, when I was about 6 years old. But sometime in college, I want to say my sophomore year, I just started to feel uncomfortable about the idea of putting a chemical product on my hair to straighten it. Although, of course, I had no idea that there was a chance that, later down the line I would find out that these could potentially cause cancer. I just didn't feel comfortable anymore. So I stopped and I started wearing my hair natural. And although I still temporarily straighten my hair with, a blow dryer and a flat iron, I don't put any chemicals in my hair anymore since then, and that's going on almost 20 years. And around that time, shortly after, it started to become more popular for women to stop chemically straightening their hair. But oftentimes, I struggle with that because, if I may have a professional event to go to and I didn't get my hair blow dried and straightened out, and then I feel like, how do I do my hair in a way that's going to be professionally accepted? And that is something I should never have to worry about. I should be able to go into any space as I was created naturally, with my hair being the way that it grows from my head, and not feel concerned that I'm going to be stigmatized or that I'm going to be judged. So when you add that layer to this hair relaxer issue and the science that has recently come out, it makes it so much more troubling because there's been a cultural acceptance of what beauty looks like. And there's, of course, been a need for a lot of Black women to feel like they have to meet that standard. And that, of course, sometimes means or often means straightening their hair. So when you think of hair relaxers, they became a normal self-care process, part of the normal self-care process. The same way you'd put lotion on your body, you'd put hair relaxer in your hair. And
it was a process too.
Yes, it was a process. and it's one of those things where pretty much every girl I knew in school had a hair relaxer. All of us did.
Mm-hmm.
So we did something that we felt we needed to do to be culturally accepted and to be able to be seen as beautiful in the eyes of Americans. And then we did that in a way that harmed us later. And that is what is so unfortunate.
215-227-2727. That's the number for Court Radio every Saturday morning. We answer live and immediately your legal issues. If you've been involved with hair relaxers, if this is touching a chord with you and you want to join this conversation, give us a call at 215-227-2727. If you or you know someone who has suffered with endometrial or uterine cancer and are just now realizing the connection between that disease and the products you've been using, you need to give us a call at 215-227-2727. We will undertake an investigation for your claim, and we will have experts, doctors reviewing medical records. We will make sure that if your disease was caused by the use of this product, that the people who created it, who, as Sherrell says, have a duty to have investigated it before they put it in the marketplace, we will make sure they pay for their mistakes. They intentionally did not undertake the proper investigation because that might have interfered with their profit margin. And that's really what this comes down to. The only way to make companies change the way they behave with how they treat us as the end user is to make it costly for them not to do the right thing.